We are here, third day in a row that we are live. We are going live every single day of the NFL season, and we are on day number 3, Saturday, September 6th. We are just over 24 hours away, 26 hours away exactly from the Sunday slate of games kicking off, and we are excited. Down and Fun is here. And we're just here kind of answering any questions you have, any start sits or panics or trades, or I know people are panicking a little bit about the start to the year with, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Isaiah Pacheco, all kind of falling flat there. But this happens every single year, right? Every single year we get kind of people panic about week one. People overreact about week one. So, one of the things to remember is that it is week one, and especially these early games, it's always a little bit weird. It's just different. One of them was played in Brazil. One of them was played on Thursday. You'll remember Derrick Henry last year didn't look great. He did score a touchdown, but he had 13 carries, 46 yards, and a touchdown last year. No catches or anything. This happens every year. I'm sure there's other examples of just guys who kind of fall flat in the first week or so. Down with Fun is our resident QJ Quentin Johnston lover, and he looked good. He looked really good. It's always interesting how we tend to kind of write off players just so quickly. With Quentin Johnston, it was just like from the get-go, people did not really like Quentin Johnston from the moment he was drafted. And so people were it was so easy for people to just be out on him after his first year and stuff like that. And then you remember, like, hey, this guy was by some considered the best wide receiver in that draft. First round pick. He looked good. 7 targets, 5 catches, 79 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And we got to remember last year, Quentin Johnston had 8 touchdowns, 8 of 23, 8 of Justin Herbert's 23 passing touchdowns. So over 30% of his passing touchdowns went to Quentin Johnston. And so maybe he's just that kind of player. He's a red zone touchdown type of guy. And if Justin Herbert has a 30 touchdown season, passing touchdown season, and Quentin Johnston could hit double digits, right? Now, if Justin Herbert only throws under 25, he's probably not going to hit double digits. But that was a pretty balanced attack in terms of, a lot of people got to touch the ball for the Chargers, but really it was funneled between Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston. I think 26 targets came, 26 of like 34 passing passes went those guys' way. So if it kind of just funnels into those players, all 3 of them could be good, but the big one to maybe be concerned about is Ladd McConkey, and people were drafting him as a top 10, top 15 wide receiver. And, if all these guys are going to be involved, he's not going to be that. He'll be good, but he won't be top 10. So, and you say, I think less is more ramp up with QJ will really help him unlock him. He only needs a few targets to do a ton of damage. To me, he's better value bet version of JMO. No, you're kind of right in that sense. Like Jameson Williams is probably a better player and on a better fantasy offense, I would guess. But they're both kind of like Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Jameson Williams. These type of players. You can even argue like Xavier Worthy when we thought Rashee Rice was going to be there. These type of players are kind of those. Few low target, ton of damage type of players. And that's why I like to think of players as like builds rather than just like this guy is better than this guy. It's like, no, this is the type of player this person is. I think of it when I was just thinking about this with Javonte Williams and Isaiah Pacheco. And obviously, we have the week one on our minds, and Javonte scored over 20 PPR fantasy points. Pacheco was terrible. But when you think about them, in terms of like the type of players they are, they're kind of the same type of player, right? And I think if we start thinking of fantasy a little bit more like that in terms of like what is this player's build and role, I think we're going to be a little bit more successful than trying to just predict like this player's better than this player, right? And so you think of Pacheco and Javonte, it's like, okay, they're both running backs who probably aren't going to catch too many passes, maybe a little bit touchdown dependent. They're not going to be the focal point of their team's offenses. They're both on good offenses. They both, and this is before the season, right? That we were thinking this. They both potentially could be sharing a little bit more than we want to. Now, Javonte didn't really share at all. And then, I think you start to find value, like you're saying. And so it's like, well, instead of spending a 5th round, 6th round pick on Jameson Williams, why not pay Quentin Johnson with my last pick and bank on that or something? So I kind of like it. And he doesn't need a lot of targets. You're right. He doesn't need a lot of targets to really do well. What was his he had that big catch. I'm trying to figure out what it was. Doesn't show his long here, but I know he had that big catch there. And you're right, he doesn't need a lot of targets to do it. So I think, again, I'm going to put a little bit more focus on this in the future of just like grouping players into builds. And when you think of it that way, I think you can hit on guys like a Javonte Williams, like a Quentin Johnson more, rather than just saying, oh, this guy sucks, So yeah, Morning Rocky and Mr. Magic, leave your comments and thoughts in the chat here, and yeah, keep me busy for the next hour, because I would love to have stuff to talk about here. We're just week one is always a little bit, you kind of just start the players you drafted to be starters, right? Trying to pull up Quentin Johnston's his long here. Quentin Johnston was a 33-yard catch. So yeah, if he can do one of those type of plays each, most games and catch a touchdown, like you're going to be looking pretty good. So, another note from that game was, Trey Harris. I think people were pretty excited about Trey Harris. I was never the biggest Trey Harris fan. I'm not trying to say anything about Trey Harris and his future right now. I was hesitant on like, and I think a lot of people thought Trey Harris was going to be out there as the starter, especially with Mike Williams when he retired. And I kind of thought like, one, Quentin Johnston, he's probably not going to take his role. But two, there's Keandre Lambert-Smith, who actually played more snaps than Trey Harris. I think there's going to be a slow ramp up with a guy like Trey Harris. The Chiefs should trade for Tyreek. Yeah, did we get any news on Xavier Worthy? I know it was like a shoulder injury, but did we get any news on exactly what it was? He's set for this is 3 hours ago, set for an MRI. I'm worried about Mahomes and his value. I'm worried about Mahomes and his value this year. If Worthy, especially over the next 5 weeks, if Worthy and Rice are going to miss a majority of that. And this is why I'm always a little bit nervous about taking quarterbacks early that don't run the ball, the non-rushing guys. Now, I know Mahomes just gave us almost 12 points on the ground, right? But Mahomes is a player who can do damage on the ground, right? But you don't consistently rely on it. He's going to get 300-400 yards rushing every single year. He'll probably have a handful of touchdowns, 2, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. But you don't rely on it every year like you do with a Lamar, a Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, a Josh Allen, right? Where those guys are getting 700-800 yards rushing, and they're giving you 30-40 yards rushing every single game. I'm always hesitant with these guys, not just because they don't run the ball, but because they're a little bit more reliant on their wide receivers being healthy, right? We need Worthy and Rashee Rice healthy for Mahomes to have a 40-touchdown year. We need T. Higgins and Jamar Chase to be healthy. We need, Mike Evans, Godwin, these guys to be healthy for Baker Mayfield. So, yeah, Chiefs, man, Chiefs are – we could just go back to what they have been the last couple of years. We saw that one drive where they had a 16-play drive and like grinded it out and got a field goal. Like that is the Chiefs of old. We expected more explosive plays and with Worthy and Rice not there, I think it derails their plans a little bit. So maybe they do trade for Tyreek. That'd be kind of funny. So much to uncover. Hollywood Brown, PPR, Quentin Johnston, how much we paying? I wouldn't overpay for Quentin Johnston. Because I would just be a little bit hesitant on I still think he's going to be a little bit touchdown dependent. And so I don't think I'm plugging in a shallow league, and shallow is what most people play in. And what a shallow league is any type of start 7, 8, or 9. And when I mean by start 7, 8, 9, that's not including kickers and defense. So a standard league, I think for a lot of people, is a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. That's a start 7. If you play a kicker and defense, those are not included into the start number. Some people play 3 wide receivers and a flex, and that's a start 8. Maybe 2 flexes, start 9. So I think in most shallow leagues, I still don't think Quentin Johnston's going to be the type of player to kind of win you your fantasy leagues. I think he's still going to be a little bit touchdown dependent. But he'll be more of a bye week type of replacement. So I don't want to overreact too much. I don't want to do the Isaiah Likely last year, spend all your fab on him. You're probably not going to get him when you do this, but I'm fine with I'd probably limit it to 5 to 10%, to be honest, in a shallow league. In a deeper league, I'm definitely putting out more for Quentin Johnston if he's somehow out there. In our listener leagues, we play in start 10, start 11, start 12, right? And so guys that you're drafting in rounds 11 and 12 in your fantasy draft are starters. So then in those type of leagues, I would bump that up to 15% or so, maybe even more, to be honest, because there's not a lot of starters there sitting on your bench. So obviously for Dynasty, he's still quite available. He's still rostered, basically. Hollywood Brown, though, is a different story. If we get news on Xavier Worthy missing even just a few games, Hollywood Brown, I think I would take over Quentin Johnston. The guy had 16 freaking targets last night, 10 catches, 100 yards. Now, he had that big 50-yarder, but even if he got 9 for 50, that's still 14 PPR points. And if you remember, Hollywood Brown back in 2024, he had a stretch like this. He missed most of the season, right? In 2024, came back and played the last 2 games, or came back and played 2 games at the end of the year to be ramped up for the playoffs. And he had 15 targets in those games, in those 2 games. So literally, we saw from Hollywood Brown last year, we saw him play 5 games last year. He played in 5 games, right? And Hollywood Brown in those 5 games, I'm trying to pull it up here real quick. Hollywood Brown in those 5 games had 15, 17, 22, 28 targets in 5 games, right? That's pretty good. That's almost 6 targets a game. That's good for 100 targets. He had 14 catches in 5 games. So, and again, if in one of those games he only had 2 targets, he played in 5 games last year. 4 of the 5 he had 5 or more targets. So I think he could really benefit from this. Juju Smith-Schuster in a deeper league is going to benefit from this. Jalen Royals, if he ever comes back or if he's healthy, he could, the rookie, he could potentially benefit from this. So, and Justin Herbert's year, he looked really damn good, man. He looked really, really, really good. And if he's going to run the ball a little bit more, he had 7 carries in this game. Now, I don't think, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, I don't think any of those were designed runs. So they came off of drop back pass scrambles, right? I don't know if the Chargers, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if you do remember any designed runs for Herbert, please let me know. But he had 7 carries. I think they all came off when he was dropping back to pass and scrambled. What that means is they basically dropped back to pass over 40 times last night and ran the ball, handed the ball off only 18 times. I don't think it's going to be quite that drastic. I think this may have been hey, everyone's going to think we're going to come out and run the ball, but we're just going to come out and pass the ball on the Chiefs, and we think that we can beat them through the air. And I do think they're going to be a one to be closer to a little bit more 50-50, 30 rush attempts, 30 passes, as close to that. And that would, unless they're going to design runs for Herbert, the rushing is going to come down a little bit. But he did also have that other one that was called back from the penalty. So, like, he has this in his game. I've always wished the Chargers, as a Chargers fan, I always kind of wish that the Chargers would use him more in the running game, especially around the end zone, And I hope they kind of do this more. And we saw it from last year from Herbert that he did run the ball a little bit more. He averaged 18 yards rushing per game last year. So if he stays around that 20 yards rushing per game, he's going to be pretty good. And I think he can get a handful of touchdowns. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of quarterbacks. This is why I always wait on quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, Dak, Justin Herbert, even throwing guys like Tua and stuff like that were at the end of the draft that you could just take a couple of them and hope one of them is going to turn into a QB1. Jared Goff was a little bit higher, but crazy to see the RB1 and wide receiver one so far, Javonte and QJ. Fantasy football is so back. Yeah, it really is so back, right? I was actually asking this last night, and you guys can answer this. Would you take right now Isaiah Pacheco or Javonte Williams on your team? Right? Would you take Javonte Williams or Isaiah Pacheco? Knowing what you know after week 1, of course. You go back and do it. Now, I'm not saying you would take Javonte where we took Pacheco, which I think was like in the 7th round or so, but who do you want on your team? Someone sends you a trade right now. They offer you Javonte Williams for your Isaiah Pacheco. Would you take it? And I think we had a couple people last night say they would. And that's crazy after one game. And look, Rocky says Javonte 100%. That's how fast fantasy football changes, right? That's how fast it changes. These were guys that were they were drafted like 3.5 rounds apart from each other in PPR leagues. I don't know exactly where I'm checking right now, but in PPR leagues, Isaiah Pacheco was going right around the end of the 5th round, the 509. Javonte Williams was going at the 992. So we're talking about almost 3.5 round difference there. And after one game, we would rather have Javonte. And that's why I think, going back to our conversation of kind of thinking about fantasy football in terms of archetypes and builds, like Down the Fun, brings up right here. Thinking of guys that way rather than just like this player is better than this player. Thinking about the type of role they're in, the type of player they are, will help you find these type of values. When you actually think about it this is again before the NFL season. When you actually sit there and think about it, what was really the difference between Isaiah Pacheco and Javonte Williams? Both on good offenses, both the lead backs, both have maybe committee concerns, both probably not going to catch too many passes, both going to be a little bit touchdown dependent, right? Maybe Isaiah Pacheco, you can argue, is just a better player and all of that. But that being said, neither of them are the focal points of their offense, right? The Chiefs can win a game and play in a close game, and Isaiah Pacheco touches the ball 5 times or carries the ball 5 times. Like you would never see that with some other players. Like they're going to, some of the better guys and stuff like that. So I think it's just a better way to kind of think about it as well. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, Pacheco's going to be worse than Javonte rest of the year. And Mr. Magic brings up that Pacheco's in a contract year. The one thing I will say now, and I was kind of on the Pacheco side in terms of where he was going in the fantasy drafts. I thought he was actually good value. Now he finished kind of not at great value. Like I wouldn't have taken Pacheco if I'm reading this right. He was going at the 509 in drafts, or let's just say the 5-6 turn, right? End of the 5th, beginning of the 6th. When he was going like in the 7th round, though, I was kind of in on Pacheco, and he was at one point in the offseason. I've never been the biggest Isaiah Pacheco fan, but now we have, last year we were worried about Pacheco because, and I was basically saying, look, the guy came back from a broken leg. Of course, they're going to ease him back in and use Kareem Hunt. But Kareem Hunt played too many snaps last night. He played in 37% of the snaps, I think it was. That's too many. We need Pacheco at 70, right? Not at, I think Pacheco was at 55, 54. That's not good. We need Pacheco at 60, 65, 70%. He's not the type of player, in my opinion, that could be good with playing 50, 55% of the snaps. And what's the excuse? Like he's a year removed almost from his broken leg injury. So, yeah, I don't know. And by the way, they were bringing in Kareem Hunt for those tough, fourth down, 3rd and 1 type of runs. So why wouldn't they use Kareem Hunt at the goal line? And Kareem Hunt's always been pretty good at the goal line. Rocky says Browns are signing second-round running back Quinshon Judkins. Yeah, I saw that this morning. I was telling people basically like a week or so before the season started, over the last week or so. I was telling people that I wouldn't expect anything from Judkins until mid-October. Like, he's just getting signed. He's already way behind the 8 ball. This is why rookies who miss training camp don't really do much to begin the year, especially, or maybe even all season, is because when you're practicing during the season, you're practicing your game plan for that upcoming game. You're not like practicing to develop players. I mean, you are, of course, but the training camp is there for like developing players and giving players roles. Pacheco or Judkins is going to be with the second, third team guys. He's not going to be with the first team guys preparing for this week's game for a while. So, I mean, if you drafted Judkins, you're glad he signed, but you probably still had to draft him in the 7th, 8th round, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he fell. So I'm not expecting anything from Judkins for another month at least. So, but it's good that he signed. It's good that he signed because it was getting a little worrisome there. Josh Gordon has played with the Chiefs before, just saying. Yeah. I mean, what other wide receivers could they trade for? The trades just never really happen in the NFL. I mean, they really just don't. Yeah. I don't know. Keenan Allen is the wide receiver to want, not Quentin Johnston. Sure. I feel like Keenan Allen was being drafted, though, just because of the name and stuff like that. Like, here we have ADP. Keenan Allen average ADP at the early 12th round. And so there's very few fantasy football drafts that go less than 15 rounds, right? So it's usually about 14, 15 rounds, like minimum. So Keenan Allen I assume, is on people's teams. And yeah, I agree though. I do think I would go for Keenan Allen over Quentin Johnston. Keenan Allen still looked good. And he led the team in targets last night. And I went back and talked about this. He wasn't that. I talked about this last night. Keenan Allen wasn't that bad last year. Like, when you actually look at his stats, he missed 2 games. He put up 70 catches, 750 yards, 7 touchdowns, missing 2 games, right? So like, he wasn't terrible last year. I think it's easy to think that he was, but he wasn't. That's a 17 game pace of 80 catches, 850 yards, 10, 11 touchdowns. And that's with, by the way, he's still at 121 targets last year. He was on pace for 137 targets. His catch percentage just went way down. Keenan Allen's catch percentage has always been pretty high in his career. He averages 68.1% catch percentage. Never below 60. His lowest before last year, Keenan Allen, was 63.6% catch percentage. He was always above 65%. Last year was at 57.9, and that's just due to Caleb Williams and the offense and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anyways, I think Keenan Allen was a little bit slept on after he signed. Dallas always played at 60-30, 70-30. Yeah, especially with Miles Sanders fumbling, right? Miles Sanders might have fumbled his way out of some of his work there. Pacheco in a contract year. Yeah, he is in a contract year. Chiefs don't really have an offense now, so they got to try and get him more involved. Sure. I do think what Rocky said, and I've been talking about Brashard Smith for forever, right? As a dynasty guy. But even kind of started talking about him as a, is he good for redraft as well this year? And my exact reasoning was, can he play the Jerick McKinnon role? Right? That's what I've been talking about him for the last month or so. And Jerick McKinnon, last time the Chiefs offense was what we thought of as the Chiefs offense, this was post Tyreek Hill. This was 2022. They didn't have Tyreek Hill. They had Juju was their leading receiver, I think, that year. And Patrick Mahomes still put up like 40 touchdowns back in 2022. Last time they did that, they had Jerick McKinnon. They had a player out of the backfield who could turn dump offs into something, who could be used in the red zone. And can they use Brashard Smith like that? And I hope they do. But we'll see. Yeah, Hunt isn't very good. He's just good for short yardage. Sure. But that's concerning because we know Pacheco's not going to get many catches. And if they start using Hunt at the goal line in the short yardage situations, then Isaiah Pacheco becomes a trap back. He becomes a running back who, he's getting 15 touches a game, 15 carries a game, but it turns into 60, 70 yards, no touchdowns with one catch. That's not very good. That's a trap back, Like they're getting the work, but they're not giving you the points because they're not getting the touchdowns and they're not getting the reception. So I hope he doesn't turn into that, but there's a chance he does. And I think it was Kevin who, for some reason, I thought Kevin was in here. Kevin last night was talking about the Chiefs' schedule. If you look at their schedule, so they get the Eagles next week, then they get the Giants. By the way, Giants should have a good defensive line, so that could be tough for Pacheco. And then the Ravens, Jags, Lions, Raiders, Commanders, Bills before their bye in November. And so if they're in games where they're trailing like they were in this game, they were basically they were trailing like the whole game, right? I don't think the Chiefs ever had the lead. If they're in games where they're trailing, which they could be against the Eagles, against the Ravens, against the Lions, against the Commanders, against the Bills, we might not see a whole lot of Isaiah Pacheco. Right? So I don't know. It's a little bit concerning with him. It is a little bit concerning. I don't think Casey was impressed. Oh yeah, we went over that. Even though he missed training camp, super intrigued by Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond is your Quentin Johnston, your new Quentin Johnston. Supposedly is already a starter. The thing about Isaiah Bond, which may get him on the field, is that speed is so important in to NFL teams. They need players to threaten down the field, right? Because it just opens up the offense. I think that's like the one area I'm curious where the Chargers are going to get that from. It doesn't have to be speed, by the way, but someone who's just good at getting down the field. You have McCon. I don't know if Johnston's that type of player. I think Johnston's more of a get the ball in his hands and let him do work after the catch. The Chargers, do they have like that speed option? Because they have, McConkey and Keenan Allen kind of over the middle. But anyways, I wouldn't be surprised if he is with the starters because, who do the Browns have that can really stretch the field and threaten it down the field on their team? Judy, obviously Judy can catch long passes, but he's not that type of player. They're not going to use him that way. Cedric Tillman, maybe. Jamari Thrash is not that type of player. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting if Isaiah Bond is going to be the starter. DeAndre Carter. So, by the way, Deontay Johnson. Maybe the Chiefs go out and get Deontay Johnson. Who knows? Blue being inactive and Miles fumbling makes me very intrigued on Phil Maffa. Yeah, maybe Phil Maffa. Is he on their active roster or is he on their practice squad? Oh, no, he's on the IR. He's on the IR right now. So, yeah, maybe give the ball to Kevontae Turpin a little bit more. I'd like to see Jaden Blue active, kind of use him in that Tony Pollard role, like make Javonte the Zeke of the team and Jaden Blue like the Pollard of the team back when Zeke and Pollard were both pretty good. So I hope they kind of use Jaden Blue a little bit more like that, but who knows? Hunt Pacheco are the same player. 1A equals 1A and 1B. Yeah. Yeah, I think Pacheco's I think he's a more explosive player, right? And if you told me, like, okay, both are going to get 12 to 15 touches, like, I'm obviously going to take Pacheco just because I don't think that's going to turn into too much. Just the problem is, like, man, Pacheco has to play more than 55% of the snaps, which is what he played. Last night. I think it was. What was it last night? I'm pretty sure it was 56% of the snaps. 50, not even 55, 50.8% of the snaps. That just, we can't, that's not going to fly. Not going to fly. Traded Herbert for May in the offseason as a Chargers fan. Dynasty, this saddens me. I still prefer Drake May over Justin Herbert for the upside. That's not me saying that I think May's going to be a better quarterback or even a better fantasy option. I just think May has 500-yard rushing potential, and it's hard to find those guys in fantasy football. And so I still lean May over Herbert. But we always knew this was possible for Herbert. I will caution people a little bit. Again, they drop back to pass the ball over 40 times. Right. It doesn't show in the box score. If you look on, whatever app you look on, it shows 35 pass attempts, 25 rush attempts. But I think all 7 of Justin Herbert's rush attempts came off of drop back and pass and then scrambling. I don't think he had any designed runs. So that means they dropped back and passed the ball 41 times and they handed the ball off 18 times. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this was more of, hey, we're going to trick everyone. We're going to trick the Chiefs. So we think we can beat the Chiefs. Now, it is possible because Justin Herbert's just awesome, right? And he's their best player. And so maybe they could be like, no, we do need to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game, right? Especially if Herbert's going to run the ball. But I would bet on them being a little bit more balanced, about 30-30 or so. That's what I would kind of bet on, right? So yeah, I think I'd bet on that. So that would drop not only Herbert's passing numbers most likely, but his rushing numbers. If you're dropping back in less and you're getting a lot of your rushing yards on scrambles, well then you're going to have less opportunity. Now Herbert could just be very, very efficient, right? Like he could have a season where he averages 2.5 touchdowns a game, right? Like this could happen even if he's only passing the ball 30 times. So we know he's that type of player. There are so many weapons on the Chargers. No one even guards Quinton. Yeah. I was thinking about that last night. It's like, man, the Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey pairing, like those guys just are always seemingly open. And when they're not, that means Quentin Johnston's open. I still think they need some kind of deep threat over the top. If it's Darius Davis, Trey Harris, someone to kind of like keep the defense honest a little bit. But yeah, and then they didn't even really showcase what they can do in the run game. And I think they could be a lot better rushing team as well, which is going to open up, stuff for those guys too, especially for Quinton Johnston, I think. So with Judkins signed, is Dylan Sampson a droppable? Strange and Sampson, both on my bench. Judkins dropped to waiver. What would you do? I mean, I would pick up Judkins if I could. I would probably drop Brenton Strange. Who's your tight end, Marvin? Who's your tight end there? So let me grab my water. And the reason why I don't want to drop Dylan Sampson is because I don't think we're going to see Judkins. We're definitely not going to see him. I don't know if we see him in live game action for the next 2-3 weeks. And I don't think we really see him being used significantly until like mid-October, me personally, at the earliest. And plus, he's always a week away, right? Judkins is always a week away from when you're going to feel comfortable starting him. So if you think he's going to get major work in 3 weeks, well, then that's really 4 weeks later you're going to start him, right? If you think he's going to get ramped up in 5 weeks, well, that's really 6 weeks because you're not going to start him on the game you think he's going to get ramped up in. You're going to start him in the game after he gets ramped up. So always add that one extra game there. So I wouldn't drop Samson. I think Samson's really good. I'm a huge Dylan Sampson fan. Also, I think the Browns, their history, they just use multiple running backs. Even Nick Chubb in his prime, they were using Kareem Hunt 50% of the time. So I would hold on to Dylan Sampson. You have Njoku. I would just drop Strange. I would drop Strange and I would roll with Njoku and then keep Sampson because Sampson could be good the entire season. There's a chance, right? Downward Fun brings up a good point here and says there's still the rumors of a suspension are still possible, 2-3 game suspension. And so if that happens, I don't even think he gets to practice with the team. So then he's probably really done for like basically the entire season, except for maybe December. If he gets that 2-3 game suspension here, I think Judkins is probably droppable. Yeah. So obviously in redraft, not in Dynasty. Kyle Seibert, hopefully I'm saying that right. Audio. Welcome back. Should I double flex Shakir and call me? Yeah, we were talking about this. It's Allen or should I use Jacoby Myers or Ollie Gordon start to? I have Pickens and Worthy this week. Yeah, so you're at a 35% chance of winning. You need a little bit more of a Hail Mary. I think for that reason, I would bench Shakir and start Coleman and Jacoby Myers. I don't think I'm going to start Achane's full participant, so I just don't. I think they'll use Ollie Gordon, but I don't know in what capacity we're going to see. I know the Dolphins, like a couple years ago, it was like both their running backs, Mostert and Achane, were relevant, but last year it was like only Achane. So I don't know if they want to kind of go in that direction a little bit more or not. But yeah, I think I would go with Coleman and Jacoby Myers there. Coleman for the upside, and you're at a 35% chance of winning. So, or maybe when do the Raiders play? Do they play the afternoon game? No, they play in the morning. Well, I know the Bills don't play till the evening, so let's just say you caught up and it's Sunday Night Football and you caught up a little bit, and instead of a 35% chance you're favored to win, then I would pivot to Shakir. So I think I would go with that. I would start Jacoby Myers, and then I would look at my matchup going into Sunday night. Am I favored to win? If I am, I'm going to go Shakir. If I need a bit of a Hail Mary, or even if I'm like 45% chance to win, I'll probably go Shakir. If I need a bit of a Hail Mary, I think I would go with Coleman and just hope that he catches a couple touchdowns or something. I think that's how I would do it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I would do there. They can sign Claypool. Yeah, Johnston is nothing. Deontay Johnson, man, I'm telling you, hated the first pick the Chargers spent on him. Are you talking about Amari and Hampton? Who are you talking about there, Marvin? Dropped Strange. I have Njoku, added Garendo just in case. Yeah, Garendo's a good ad for sure. Brian Robinson's obviously a good ad. So I know Brian Robinson's probably already rostered, but no problem, Kyle. That's what we're here for. We're going to be live about 20 more minutes, guys, so get the questions in. Keep them rolling if you got them. We are back into full swing. We're going to be live every single day of the football season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, at least for a little bit. It could be 20, 30 minutes, Hopefully I can make it. We'll see. This is the goal I set for myself. Join our Discord if you're not already in there. And make sure to hit the subscribe button as we inch towards 1,400 subscribers. There's different ways to support us. If you feel the need to or the want to, there's the super chat option, which you click the little. I think there's a little $sign down by the live chat box, and you can donate whatever you want. You can become a member. it's not mandatory. It's more of just, hey, you wanna give us something because you're feeling generous. That's always an option. But yeah, hop into the Discord is really where I want you guys to be. You'll know when we go live. We're gonna try and go live. The schedule for sure is Monday and Thursday after the primetime games. Saturday, Sunday mornings. Now the other days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, I'll have to fill it in and kind of see where I'm going to go from there. So, Zay Flowers or Josh Downs and Alec Pierce Dynasty Superflex. How many starters, Marvin? How many starters do you have, not including kickers or defense, if you play with those? Because if it's a shallower league, I'm going to go with Zay Flowers there. Like if it's a 12 team, 10 team, start 8, 9, 10 team, start 10, I'll go with Zay Flowers. If you're in a deeper league, 12 team, start 12 or something, I might lean with like the Downs and Pierce. I'm not the biggest Flowers fan, but I do think he's the best player in that grouping right there. I do think Josh Downs is a good player too, but they're both kind of on offenses that they're just not doing. They never do it for offense for wide receivers. So yeah. DK or a mid 27 first. First of all, I don't know. Oh, Rocky, you have a question? Where are you at? Oh, here it is. I have a flex issue. Olave versus Arizona. Tillman in a shootout versus a bad Cincy defense. Pittman versus Young. Pittman versus young Miami defenders. I'm going to rule out Michael Pittman. I just kind of need to see how that offense is really gonna work here with Daniel Jones before I start Pittman over those other guys. I don't mind Tillman in, like you said, a shootout against a bad Cincy defense. I think Tillman could actually be pretty good. I still think I'd lean Olave, though. I think he's the best player, and I tend to go with just guys who I know that are the best players. I think this Olave was being used in the slot during preseason, the last preseason game. He was playing a lot out of the slot. And if that's the case, if he plays 60, 70% snaps in the slot, that's like the perfect thing we need for Olave because we don't have great quarterback play, we assume. And so then giving him easy targets is going to be what makes him fantasy relevant. I still lean Olave, Rocky, over these other guys. If you feel strongly about Tillman, I don't mind it. I'm not going to go Pittman, though. I'm not going to go Pittman. So hopefully that helps there. Where were we? Yeah, DK or a mid 27 first. I don't know. Well, first of all, I don't know how you can predict it's a mid. Are you just, you're saying mid because you don't really know. So is it essentially a random 27 first is what you're saying? Or do you really think it's like mid to high? Because we're a couple years out. Like, I don't even know how you can predict technically, of course you can predict like, bad teams, but maybe not bad teams that far out. Oh, that's a tough one. I think I would actually keep DK Metcalf for just assuming it's a random first. Now, if you're telling me you think for sure it's like a top 6-7 pick, then I don't mind it. But I just don't know how you can predict that right now. And so I'm going to lean DK over a random first. I do like the 27 class a lot, but I think DK could have a really, really good season this year. And that could vault him into like being worth more than a first, a couple firsts potentially. So I'll lean DK there. Worthy was a disappointing injury. It was, man, because it was just, I don't know who was at fault. If Worthy ran his route too deep or Kelsey ran it a little bit too shallow. It was Kelsey, right, that hit him and not Noah Gray. Yeah, and he didn't seem very happy, which is, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to miss time, but, obviously, how things feel and your own body and stuff. And he didn't seem very happy there. So, yeah. Chiefs, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting with the Chiefs. They have a hell of a schedule before their bye week. The QJ draft pick, he was a wasted pick. He was free. Yeah. Okay. I thought you were talking about Omarion. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan. I actually wanted Zay Flowers in that draft. I wanted JSN, but he was gone already. I wanted Zay Flowers in that draft for the Chargers. I thought, man, Zay Flowers on the Chargers would be so much fun. But that didn't happen. I've always been like, people are always going to hold it against Quentin Johnston. And this is why breaking out, when we're talking about dynasty, this is why breaking out year one is so important. Because if you don't, people are always going to hold that against you, especially when you had the type of opportunity that Quentin Johnston had. He had the opportunity. I think Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were like both hurt in that year, his rookie year. But that being said, I'm going to ignore the fact that Quentin Johnston was drafted in the first round. And if he could just be what he's been, if he could be what he was last year, a touchdown guy, a big play guy, if he can be what he, just be a red zone touchdown guy and be productive, important piece of this Chargers offense, I'm not going to care as much as about where he was drafted. Be something, right? Be an important part of this offense. Be a red zone threat. Be a big play guy. That's all I need you to be now. Offered Kamara, Flowers, and DK for Downs, 27 first. Io Manor, Thornton, and a second. Offered Kamara, Flowers, and DK for Downs, a 27 first. I like the Kamara, Flowers, and DK side. Unless I'm in like a huge rebuild and I can't get much more for those guys. But like, to me, I still think Flowers is like worth a random first. I don't necessarily think I would pay a random first for him, but I don't think I would give him up for anything less than that. And so like DK and Kamara for Io Manor, Thornton in a second. Yeah, no, and Downs, like I would take the Kamara, Flowers, and DK side pretty easily there. So if you can get that, if you can get the Kamara Flower side, I would do that. If you're offering in that, I would shy away from that. So, keep the questions coming, guys. If you have them, we're going to be live for till the top of the hour here. And yeah, appreciate you all. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think around 11 Eastern time, I think is when we're going to go live. Around 11 Eastern. I think it might be a little bit earlier, but I think around 11 Eastern again is when we'll go live. Excited for Flowers and likely outs. Yeah. My thing with Flowers though is like your quarterback just had an incredible passing year. Lamar Jackson had 41, almost 4,200 yards passing, 41 touchdowns. And you weren't even barely a wide receiver 3 last year, Zay Flowers. That's my only concern there. So, yeah. You did notice that exactly. So that's best case scenario for Olave if he's in the slot there. So yeah, I still lean Olave. Don't mind Tillman. You are banking on a shootout, and you're banking on the Bengals defense being bad, which both are probably true, but you never really know, right? You never really know. So I'd rather just bank on this player I know is good. Yeah. And yeah, other guys that I think are going to be a disappointment. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be terrible. I think Pollard could be pretty bad too. I just think rookie quarterback going against the Broncos, maybe the best defense in the league, plus Ridley probably getting Pat Surtain, the defensive player of the year last year. I think they're going to be bad. And I think both are kind of buy lows as well, because I think both are going to be pretty good this year. That being said, they do have a kind of a tough schedule to start, but I think Titans players are going to be really bad tomorrow, but I think they're going to be good. I like Ridley and I like Pollard this year. So So that's one that comes right to my mind, or straight to my mind. Other players that could be bad. Just kind of looking through the schedule here. Bijan Robinson could not be great. Buccaneers defense. Now, Vita Vea, I think, is going to be out. But Buccaneers rushing defense was really good last year, and it's kind of been good for a while. I want to say the Bucks were like near the top of they were the fourth, they allowed the fourth least amount of rushing yards. Yeah. And so Bijan Robinson, with Vita Vea going to be out, I think is going, Vita Vea going to be out could help him, but there's a chance that Bijan is not very good. Trying to think who else. I could see the Giants just being terrible for fantasy. I think their defense could be like really, really good. Their offense could be very ball control, not good, but ball control, slow offense. I could just see the Giants being one of those teams where it's like, oh my God, like my fantasy guys have to go against the Giants. And they're just like quarterbacks could be terrible, especially now. Jaden Daniels is a mobile quarterback, but I think the Giants just could be kind of a nasty defense and really take over games with that defensive line. And they could be in a lot of 20 to 17 type of games. So maybe Commanders guys. I do think you're going to get a lot of dump offs. I think you're going to get a lot of dump offs from Jaden Daniels. And so I think Eckler, Debo could be pretty good in tomorrow's game. You know what? Let me see. Let me actually see something here. Let me see something here as I get more into this. Now I'm invested. Let's start with quarterbacks with poor matchups. I think Stroud has a tough matchup. I think Caleb Williams has a really bad matchup. And I could see them being pretty bad too. So I'd say the Bears could be in that category of buy lows. Trying to think of players that people are actually going to be starting. Justin Fields going against the Steelers, any team going against the Steelers is not going to be great. Running backs here with poor matchups. We already talked about Pollard. Swift. I mean, just the entire Bears offense, I think, could be buy lows after this week because I do think they're going to be good, but Minnesota is a tough defense. And I think they're not going to run the ball a lot. Those are a couple there. Let's go with wide receivers with poor matchups. No one too crazy, I would say. I'm just looking at it here. I don't really see any wide receivers that are going to be, obviously some are going to be bad, but because of matchups, I don't really see any tight ends here. Zach Ertz might not be great. Yeah, it's not really a lot of tight ends either. So yeah, there's a few that I threw out there. Any guys you think are going to spike hard? I'm a massive Penix guy, and seeing all the other pieces that Washington team fail has me believing he was their glue. Sure. I mean, Jalen McMillan, right? He didn't fail, I would say. He's like the one guy that maybe didn't fail for that team. I know he got hurt, but he was pretty good last year. Yeah, no, that's fair. Any guys that are going to spike? I mean, for sure, someone's going to spike. Let's see who I think has really, really spike, and we're not expecting them to. I think Jordan Mason could be pretty good. Obviously Penix. I think Mason could have a really good game. I think there's a pretty good matchup against the Bears there. I think also JJ McCarthy could have a good game. And if you're talking about dynasty value, which I think you are there, McCarthy, Penix, these guys, if they have a good September, they're going to shoot up in value. They're going to shoot up in value for sure. I'm curious to see. I think Nick Chubb could be pretty good. Again, that's more for redraft, but I think Nick Chubb could have a good game if they do give him all the work. Jerome Ford or Dylan Sampson, if either one of those guys go off, um, could potentially do it there. BTJ could shoot up more in value if like Travis Hunter's not playing a whole lot. Tyreek Hill. All Tyreek Hill needs to do is have a Tyreek Hill like game of old, and Tyreek Hill is going to be huge, right? Like people are gonna fall in love with him again, kind of like Derrick Henry before last year. Metcalf, Judy, both those guys, like I think are gonna have very good seasons. There was big redraft targets for me, and they're still kind of like in terms of dynasty rankings, not they're kind of down there. Ridley as well, not this week, but this year. So yeah, there's a few there. Marvin Mims, that's my guy this year, guys. Marvin freaking Mims. I'm telling you, if they play him 60% of the snaps, I think he's going to be good. Appreciate it, Kevin. Glad to have you back again. I wanted Zay over Quentin Johnston too. Yeah. I wanted Deshaun Watson over Mahomes over Mike Will. Yeah. Yes, I scouted back then. I did like Mahomes for his haircut to start. Then I scouted. Yeah. I liked Mahomes when I watched him at Texas Tech. I remember back in 2015, I was living in Peru. I was living in like a communal home, and there was a girl there who went to Texas Tech, and so she watched all like the Texas Tech games, and so we would watch them because I was always watching football. And Mahomes was playing, and I remember telling my dad like, "Hey, you should watch this Patrick Mahomes guy out of Texas Tech. He's like this quarterback out of Texas Tech. Like he's kind of insane." But at that time, Texas Tech was just like that offensive factory, right? Like they just put up silly offensive video game numbers, and no one really translated to the NFL that much. And so, it was kind of just like, yeah, whatever, yeah, I'm trying to look at like who was on those teams. Jakeem Grant, yeah, a bunch of no-name wide receivers. No one at running back really. But anyways, Texas Tech was just one of like those offensive factories and stuff like that. And so I always used to joke like, yeah, I discovered Patrick Mahomes, blah, blah, blah. But obviously that wasn't the case. Corey Davis, Ross, and Mike Will were terrible wide receiver draft picks. Rivers and Herbert just unlocked Mike Will to Rivers didn't unlock him. I correct myself. Yeah. The wide receivers that are most likely to fail like completely are like these type of wide receivers like Mike Williams, Corey Davis, stuff like that. Not, where it's just, I like guys that can get open. Route running is by far my most important thing when I look at when I scout dynasty rookies. When I see route running that kind of jumps off the page there, that's what I like look for the most. I don't like the contested catch, big wide receivers. Now I understand why teams want them, because if you do get a big, tall, fast wide receiver who's good at contested catches that hits like a Mike Evans, like it's awesome, right? But yeah, Keon Coleman is an example of like, Trey Harris is another one where I'm not excited about these guys. But of course they could hit, right? They could hit. What is that emoji there, Marvin? Oh, is that soup? Looks like soup. I had to zoom in there. My sister's husband went to Texas Tech with Mahomes. Naturally, they're both huge fans. Yeah. It's crazy that like he had Cliff Kingsbury had Mahomes and went 7-6. 7-6 and 5-7, 2 years with Mahomes. Crazy. What was that game? Who did they play where it was just like, it was Baker. It was Oklahoma, right? Baker and Mahomes just like going off. But man, the points that they were putting up, Texas Tech was just insane. 69, 55, 59, 55, 59, 44, 54. It's crazy. It's crazy. Corey Davis, one of my biggest disappointments. Yeah, I liked Corey Davis as well. And he had that 1 year, right? It wasn't even a full year. It was like a stretch where he was just like, he was really good. I think it was in 20, it was COVID, the COVID year. He almost had 1,000 yards, but that stretch where he went on was like insane. Yeah, it was from week 7 to 15. He put up in 9 games, 750 yards, 4 touchdowns, 45 catches. So, yeah. I liked Corey Davis a lot too. DeAndre Washington went to Tech with Mahomes X Raider. Yeah, he was. I was looking at who was on that team. I kind of quickly glanced. I didn't look too much into it, but he was like the only name I really recognized from the NFL. I'm sure there was someone else, but yeah, it was kind of all Mahomes there. A buddy asked me why I'm so hard on Mike Will and Quentin Johnston, but I love Juwan Johnson doesn't break every play and he's a 5th round pick who's a baller. The other guys are ones that don't catch the ball, but Juwan did. Are you talking about Juwan Jennings or Juwan Johnson? Jennings, it looks like. Yeah, it's all about expectations, right? It's all about expectations. The problem with Quentin Johnston, I feel like, is that they just weren't using him right. Like, he is not very good when his back is to the quarterback. When he's running routes where he has to look back, that's where he has his issues. He's the type of player that you want to get him the ball on wide receiver screens, on hitches, on 2 routes, slant routes, and in routes, out routes. Trying to use him as like a down the field type of guy and stuff like that, just it's not going to work. And that's why I was kind of excited about the Trey Harris pick for the Chargers offense, not necessarily for fantasy, but for the Chargers offense, because it's like, okay. And I liked that they brought in Mike Williams back, but obviously he retired. It was like, okay, it's all starting to make sense. You have McConkey over the middle. You have Trey Harris or Mike Williams, kind of that X receiver to play on the outside. And then now with that frees up Quentin Johnston to play the Z role, where he can kind of just move all over the field, be in motion, be in the slot. You use them all over the place. It made sense. And I'm hoping that's kind of how the Chargers offense is kind of run this way. So I don't know where I'm actually going to look, like where Quentin Johnston actually lined up in last night's game. Where are you, Quentin Johnston? Let's see here. Let's see where he lined up. Quentin Johnston was playing. Here's his snaps by position. He played 11 snaps in the slot, 42 out wide, which I feel like. So he played 11 of 53, 11 of 53 in the slot, which makes sense because McConkey and Keenan Allen are going to dominate that slot. But 21% slot rate, not terrible. Considering last year Quentin Johnston played only 79 snaps in this slot the entire year. He played in 11%. So he basically doubled his slot percentage, which doesn't seem like a lot, going from 11 to 20, 22. But that's significant. If that gives you just an easy 1 or 2 easy catches a game, that's going to change a lot. So I just like how they were using Quentin Johnston more. Like, use him this way, please. So most combined yards of Baker set the NCAA. Yeah, that game was crazy. The game was insane. Jennings was on the Chargers. That would be awesome. Please trade him 49ers. Yeah, and he's the type of player, like, he's really good at run blocking too. That's why I'm a little bit I'm slightly hesitant on Ricky Pearsall, only because I do think Pearsall is going to be good, but Jennings, they use their receivers to block so much. It's a big part of their run game, and I don't know if Pearsall is quite at that level to do that. I was trying to find a bunch of Rattler games from last year. It seemed like he was getting the ball lots to Juwan and Dante Pettis. I just think that unless Kamara leaves, it will be the same offense. True, but was Olave? How many games did Olave and Rattler play together last year? Let's see here. We can pull it up real quick. Spencer Rattler. I do have to take off here in like 5 minutes. I do have a hard out. Spencer Rattler started or played in a majority of games week 6, 7, 8. Olave played in. Olave missed basically all of week 6, missed all of week 7, and then played in week 8. And week 8, he had 14 targets, 8 catches, 107 yards with Rattler. And then Rattler played in 15 through 18. And yeah, so they only played one game together. Rattler and Olave played one game together, really, and he had 14 targets. So I would go Olave. I would go Olave. Flex 1, Ridley, JMO, Travis Hunter. Ooh. So Calvin Ridley is 100% out there because he's going up against the Broncos. Cam Ward as a rookie. Man, Cam Ward rookie game going against maybe the best defense in all of the NFL. Man, if he balls out, like, holy crap, Cam Ward is going to be like the talk of the town, but no one's been talking about him. But I'm absolutely avoiding Calvin Ridley, 100% avoiding Calvin Ridley there. I'll go Jameson Williams. I don't mind Hunter. It's just you just don't know exactly how he's going to be used. I kind of want to see it. And since I have a good enough option, in my opinion, Jameson Williams, to start over him, I'll lean JMO. I'm not going to argue if you want to start Travis Hunter, but I'll lean JMO. 100%, it's not Ridley. Judkins was dropped yesterday and signed with the Browns today. Would you either Braylon Allen or Ollie Gordon? Is there no one else you can drop jelly of the month? Is there no one else? Here's what I'll say about Judkins. He is probably not going to get into a game over the next 2-3 weeks. I'd be surprised if he played if he played before week 4. I would be a little bit surprised. And I'm talking about just playing at all, right? Significant action. When is he actually going to be used significantly? I think that's not until mid-October at the earliest. And remember, and I mentioned this, you probably weren't here, Jelly, in the month. You're always a week away. You're not going to start Judkins until you see him being used for a significant percentage. And that might not be the entire season, but you're not starting him until you see that. So you're always at a week. If you think that's in 4 weeks, then you're 5 weeks away from starting Judkins. If you think that's in 5 weeks, then you're 6 weeks away from starting Judkins. Plus, like Down with Fun mentioned, Dakota mentioned that he could get suspended 2 to 3 games. That's still in the cards. So I don't think I would be dropping Braylon Allen or Ollie Gordon. I think I would just roll with those guys. I really do. I think there's a very good chance we don't see anything from Judkins the entire year. Anything enough until maybe December to start him in fantasy. Rocky, I really, really appreciate that. Appreciate it a lot. Very kind of you. And I'll be back tomorrow morning. Be here with my brother, but we'll be back tomorrow morning. So, yeah. What do you think of Hampton? Yeah, he got the usage, which is good, right? He got the usage. Yeah, I mean, I think that's good here. I do think the Chargers are going to run the ball a little bit more. So I'm still pretty high on Hampton. Still think he's going to be a top 24 running back. I don't know if he's going to be top 12 or something that maybe we were hoping for, but I do think he's going to be pretty solidly in like that top 20 to 24. So, guys, I do have to take off. Appreciate you all. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow morning around 11 Eastern time. Daniel Jones, Spencer Rattler, Joe Flacco, or A-Rod. It's a 2 QB league, but just pick one. I'm going to go with Joe Flacco. That's who I'm going to go with. And Rocky agrees. I don't mind Daniel Jones, but I kind of want to see how that all works out there. So I'll go with Joe Flacco against the Bengals' terrible defense. So, but yeah, I appreciate everyone. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Join us 11 Eastern. Join our Discord link. I'm going to drop the link in the live chat here. You'll know when we go live every single day, guys. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. but you'll know when we go live every single day of the football season, Monday, Sunday through Friday, whatever you say. Monday through Sunday is what I meant to say. Appreciate you all. Link is here for our Discord. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys all tomorrow.